Now, when we're looking at how we're going to get a company to rank well, for each page on the website, we're picking one primary keyword and up to 3 or 4 related ones. So for example, we might pick CCTV as the primary keyword, and let's say we're targeting an area. We might use the location's name, so Manchester, Leicester, wherever, or we might choose other words like installer, system, camera, things like that, and then use 2 or 3 words together. So CCTV, system installer, something like that. So we've got one main word, and then we're adding on some more sort of secondary related words. Now, the main word, we want to have it in the title of the page, in the description of the page. We want it to appear a number of times throughout the page. This meta title and description, I'll show you in a moment where they are, but they're actually within the code of the website rather than in the text of the website. So I'll show you where they're found, and I'll show you how to check if your website has them as well. The keyword we also want in the URL. So it's website.com/CCTV-install. We want the URL to have the keyword as well, because it's an important indicator to Google that this website is about this particular, this page is about this particular keyword. We also wanted in what's called an H1 heading. On a site, you can have a number of different types of heading. Then they're named from H1 down to H6, H1 being the most important, H6 being the least important. You should only have one H1, and Google uses that as an indicator of what the site's all about. And in that H1 heading, we want to have about 4 or 5 words, and those 4 or 5 words being the keyword and the related keywords. So it shows to Google, this is what this page is all about. H2 headings can be used for subheadings. So we have our H1 heading, then we have a bit of text, and then we have an H2 heading, a subheading, a subtitle, and a bit of text there. And we can use those H2s a number of times. And we're using them to emphasize to Google how important the words are that are in the subtitles, and therefore important for our search ranking. But that's not too confusing, but I'll show you that on a real site in a moment. The next thing is we want to have at least 300 words, and that's the bare minimum on the page itself. And we also want the keywords in the very first paragraph. So Google's looking at the text on the site, and it knows whatever's mentioned at the top, at the beginning, is more important than what's mentioned at the very bottom. So you need to make sure the keywords are at the beginning. 300 words is the bare minimum for me. I prefer nearer to 500 words on a service page, because then you can use the keywords several times without it reading poorly. You don't want to keep on saying CCTV, CCTV, CCTV. You need to spread that out throughout the page. You can also have images, and those images can be named with your keywords, and links between pages that also have those keywords on them. So let me show you an example. Now, I did a webinar last month on kind of the whole area of online marketing, and I use this one. So forgive me if you saw that one and you've seen this before, but this is quite a sort of a simple example of how it all fits together. So first up, we have a thing called a meta title, which is in the code of the website. And if you go to your site and you just hover over the top here, the meta title will show up. So for this particular company, we're aiming for intruder alarms, but we know burglar alarms are also quite well searched, and we're targeting these locations. You are limited in how many words you can have in there. It's based on characters. Typically, it's about 8 or so words, but it depends on how long the words are. So we've shortened Hertfordshire to Herts, partly because it tends to be searched more like that than Hertfordshire, but also to try and keep the number of characters down. So there's our title. And this page is about intruder alarms. Then we've got the URL, says intruder alarms in it. Here's our H1 heading, intruder alarms. These are our H2 headings. So these are sort of related words that are important. What we've tried not to do is go too crazy with our keywords. So if we put in here new installations of intruder alarms, survey and design of intruder alarms, it becomes, well, there's a danger it's going to be counted as spam, and also people looking at it will think, well, that's daft. You know, why you keep on saying the same words? We need to appeal to Google, but we also need to appeal to people, because we want people to fill in the contact form and we want people to phone up. So we need to be sensible with how we word these things, but at the same time have enough in there to to get the search ranking up. Now you can't see it because it's hidden behind here, but intruder alarm is in this line of text here, so it's in the sort of the first paragraph of the text. And then lower down, so we've on this site, we've got about 700 words of text in total. And I was mentioning links to other pages, and here are the links. And what's good about these links is, so this one here, it's linking to the fire alarm page. It's going to a page called fire alarm. The link is called fire alarm. It's indicating to Google that fire alarm is relevant to this website. Same with CCTV systems, electrical, exactly the same. It's linking to that page. So we're saying to Google, look, this is what this website, this page is all about. The way we sort of build up the wording for our keywords and our targets is as follows. So we're trying to rank for Leicester CCTV installer as an example. We're going to have a page called Leicester CCTV installer. So we'll have a page for CCTV, but we'll have a separate page for that location that we're targeting at that location, because our CCTV page is aimed at all different locations. So we can't list every single place we want that page to rank in, but we can have an individual page for the key areas. So Leicester being a large place, we're going to have a Leicester page. We're then going to have the title, and we're going to have Leicester CCTV installer as the very first words in the title. And this is in the meta title that's in the code of the website rather than shown on the page. And we're going to have some additional words. So in this case, domestic and commercial security cameras, because they're related keywords. We don't want to just spam CCTV. Once is enough. We don't want to keep on saying CCTV, but we want to have other words that someone might search for, such as domestic CCTV installer, commercial CCTV installer, or security cameras, or wherever it may be. Then on the page itself, we've got our H1 heading, our most important heading, and we're going to call that CCTV system installer in Leicester. If it was a CCTV page, not focused on the location, we wouldn't have that part in there. We just stick with these words, but because it's all about ranking in Leicester, we're going to have Leicester in that heading. And we're going to have some secondary subtitles throughout the page, things like these, maintenance, domestic, commercial, etc. Whatever sort of keywords we want to try and rank for as well, we're going to use them in the subheadings. Images on the page, we're going to name with a CCTV related term, and we're going to have at least 400 or 500 words on the page too. Now, there's a good little tool we use for checking how pages are at the moment. Let me show you that. Now, I'm going to give you an example. This is a company I spoke to, or that called a little while ago, called Protect Secure Systems, who use somebody else for SEO. So I'm just going to use them as an example of how to use this tool. It's called SEO Meta in one click. And if you search for that and then click on this bit here, it's a little plugin that goes on Google Chrome's browser, and you can use it to find out all about your website. If I just move that down here, it becomes this little red S here. So we go to this website, and I'm just using them because I spoke to them recently, and I remembered their name, and they've got a CCTV page here, which is ideal for our little test of what we're doing. So I've clicked on the little S, and what it's telling me first of all is the title of the page is CCTV Protect Security Systems. That's our first thing. That's the most important thing, is the title. That's what's up here. You can get by hovering on there. And as I mentioned just now, you've got about 8 or 9 words, depending on how long the words are. I'm not a fan of putting the company name in there unless the company doesn't rank for its own name. So if you were a very generic name like CCTV Installations Limited, you might want to have your name in there. But if you're a name like ProTech, which is a bit unusual, personally, I wouldn't bother with the name in there. I would have CCTV, installer, and I'd be talking about things like commercial, domestic, whatever the focus is. I'd have my 7, 8, 9 keywords focused on what really matters rather than the company name. The description, it's come up in red here because it's a bit too long, but that looks fine to me. That's good enough. Sorry, it's come up here because it's a bit too short. Actually, it needs to be longer than that. The description again is in the code of the website, and it appears on the Google search page. So if I would just put in here CCTV installer, let's come down to the search results. Let's try to find a regular company. Here we go. This one here. So there's the title. That's how it displays here, and this is the description underneath. So that's what we're doing. These two bits go into the code of the website. So if I come back to ProTech, so that bit there will appear as a top line in search results. This will appear as the bit below. And Google's looking at both of these, and it's taking a large indication of what your company and what your website's about from the words that go in there. So it's important to get them right, get the keyword at the beginning, drop the company name, and have other useful keywords. Now, a few other things on this little tool, because it's a useful thing. This is a bit old-fashioned now, but you can list keywords in the code of your website. It's a bit pointless because people used to use it for spam and would list hundreds and hundreds of keywords. So as a result, the search engines don't use it anymore. So we tend not to even bother with those. The URL here, here's to my mind, they're missing a bit of an opportunity here. So their URL is, as you can see here, CCTV. Probably better to have a bit more there. So let's say they're aimed at commercial, it would be commercial CCTV, or maybe CCTV installer, just adding an extra 1 or 2 more keywords in there. You don't want to have too many. You don't want to have 7 or 8, but you could get away with 2 or 3 keywords in there and it would work a lot better. Down here, it shows if you're using the different heading tags. So I mentioned they go from 1 to 6. 1's the most important, and I'm going to assume this is a heading 1 here. But they're missing heading 2. They don't have any heading 2s. They've done them all as heading 4s. So what they ought to be doing really is having this as your H1 heading, the most important one, and then this should be an H2 one. And if they've got any others, that's all they've got. All the subheadings down the page should be H2, and personally, don't even bother with these lowly ones unless it's for something simple like get a free quotation, something like that. The other little thing on this tool is that it tells you what your images are called. So on this website, there's a couple of things that stand out to me, which are they've named the images. Alt stands for alternative. So if an image doesn't show up, it will show this text instead. So it's important to have a name for every image because Google is looking at words rather than pictures. So it can see what an image is called and it knows, that's what the image is about. So, you give an image a good name. However, what you should also do is have the URL named as well. So this image here, let me just open so we can see which one it is. Okay, so this image here is called group-13, which means nothing. This image should have a name. Let me just get back to that. It should be called Access Control Solutions. It should match whatever's in the alt tag. So every image on your website should have a name. The URL, the image itself, the location of the image should have a name. The alt tag should have a name. It should have a title as well. And by doing that, you're saying to Google again and again and again throughout the website, this is what we do. This is what we're about. If you're focused on Leicester, then Leicester goes into here, Leicester Access Control Solutions. If you're just focused on a general CCTV page, then maybe it's CCTV installers, things like that are used. So that's SEO Meta in one click. We use it a lot for a very quick and easy way to see what's happening with a website and any errors they're making. A few key points on what should go onto your site. The most important one is don't overuse keywords. We see this again and again. Companies they spam their sites. They put the keyword in again and again and again, thinking that by doing that, then they're going to rank #1 because they've mentioned it so many times. It doesn't work. It does the reverse, and you get bumped down the search results. Same with locations. Just giving a long list of all the locations, every single town near you, doesn't work at all. It has the opposite effect. There was a site we came across about 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to the owner of the company because he was getting very, very few inquiries, and he'd paid a company overseas to do some SEO for him. And when I looked at the site, he had pages named electrician near me. So they'd taken the biggest search was electrician near me, and they called a page electrician near me. And on that page, they had a list of every single town with a population above about 3,000 or 4,000 within 30 or 40 miles of him. So there was no text on there, just a list of towns. And that will never, ever get ranked. Google will see it's spam. It's very obvious spam. Elsewhere on the site, there'll be a page about, I'm trying to think now, I think it was domestic electrical. And the word electrician was used, I think it was 27 or 28 times in about 200 or 300 words of text. So every 7th or 8th word, the word electrician came up again. And it's such obvious spam that Google will pick it up. And from a person's point of view, when you're looking at the website, it doesn't make for nice reading. You can't read it because it doesn't really make sense. If someone keeps saying we are a commercial electrician, we're a domestic electrician again and again and again, it's very, very hard to read it. So the most important thing we always suggest is when you write the text for your website, write it for people, not for search engines. Google will figure it out if you do all these things like having the right words in the titles and the headings and everything else. But the actual text of the website, write it for people so it reads well, because they're using things like readability tests to see how easy it is to read. And if it's written naturally, then it scores highly. If it's stuffed with keywords, it scores very lowly. One other thing that is well worth doing is having a regular blog, having a regular news section on your website where you're updating it on a monthly, say, basis. The reason for this is that the fresh content you're adding to the site triggers Google to come back and crawl through the whole website all over again and look at what's going on there. And by continually updating the site, Google's continually coming back, and it's helping your search ranking no end. Even to the point where you have a service page, don't build the site today and then change nothing for 5 years. You've got a page on fire alarms, add a bit to it 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, change the photos over from time to time. All those sorts of things make the world of difference to your search ranking. Within blog posts, news posts, you can also target keywords in much more detail. So if you've got a page on fire doors, you're going to be talking about what you do with fire doors, your external fire doors, internal fire doors, etc. You're going to be talking about your services, why you're a good company, all that type of thing. On a blog page or a news page, you can talk in far more detail about why fire doors are important. You can talk about statistics on fires, how they work, the technology behind them, all that sort of stuff in great detail. You can fairly easily put together what will be a 700, 800, 900 word post all about fire doors using your own knowledge of them and your own experience of them. And that level of detail is what Google is looking for and will rank high in search results, because they're trying to answer the question people are asking. So if someone's asking a question in a search engine of how do fire doors work? Are fire doors good? Things like that. And then they can take them to a page with that amount of content on. They can be fairly sure that you're going to be answering the question someone is searching for. And that's the whole goal all the time with Google, is to answer the questions so people keep on coming back using their search engine, and therefore now and again clicking on adverts which make them a bit of money. One way of deciding what to do a blog about is this. What have we got here? Here we go. One I prepared earlier. So think about things people ask. So I mean, house rewire, that's a pretty standard thing. So if I search for house rewire, a little way down the page, Google gives me a good pointer. People also ask, is it worth getting a house rewired? What's involved in a house rewire? How much does a house rewire cost? These are ideal titles for a blog. Let's have a look at fire doors, see what it comes up with for fire doors. What are the rules for fire doors? How do you know if it's a fire door? Do fire doors have to be self-closing? Straight away, somebody that's working for a company doing fire doors can answer these really quickly, but you can take these as sort of pointers in terms of what to write in a blog post. So you could literally write a blog post on what are the rules for fire doors, and you can talk about that in great detail. And you know that this is what Google is looking for, because this is what people are asking. So that they're giving you a good sort of pointer there. And we do this again and again and again. And we'll type in the sort of search we want to rank for, and then we'll have a look at what people are asking, what people are searching for. Changes over time, so we do this fairly regularly. So we keep quite a comprehensive list of all these different questions that people are asking. Another good suggestion always is to use video in blogs. It's often difficult to sit with a blank sheet of paper and write a 500, a 700, 1,000 word article about a subject, because it's boring. There are people that can do it. We employ copywriters who are fantastic at that sort of stuff. But speaking personally, it's very, very difficult to sit down there and write. I know all about SEO and so on, but to sit there and write about SEO is quite tricky. However, I can talk about it, and it's quite easy to get your phone, talk into your phone, record a video about whatever subject you want to. It doesn't have to be very high production values and so on. It doesn't have to be a perfect background, perfect lighting, etc. It just needs to be you talking about what you know about, offering useful information. Once you've done that in a video, there's various online software. There's one we use called otter.ai, which will transcribe the video into text. And very quickly, you've got a video with a load of text that can become a blog, and you can put the video at the top. You can have it on YouTube and then shown on the top of the blog. And then underneath is the text of the blog. So you're doing two things. One is for your customers, you're showing them a video that they can watch and easily learn about the subject. And for the search engines, you've got all these words down below, and you're bound to mention the keywords that you want to rank for again and again and again in them, but in a natural way, without sort of stuffing the keywords in, CCTV, CCTV, CCTV. You're mentioning it naturally throughout the text because of the way you've spoken. So it's quite an easy way of doing it. And being video, you can trial and error. You can record one and you can look at it afterwards and think, oh, that was rubbish. I ummed and I erred too much. So I'll have another go. And with a bit of practice, it gets better. But it doesn't really matter if there are ums and ers in there. I mean, this webinar, I'm recording it and we'll send it out as a replay afterwards. And there'll be hundreds of ums and ers in there because I'm thinking what to say as I'm talking. But that's natural. That's how we as humans speak. So it's all okay. Last thing on blogs is quality is key. So if you're going to do a blog, make sure it's good and useful and valuable, and avoid duplication. So there's always the sort of thought, well, why don't I just go and find somebody else's website, copy it and paste it on mine? Don't do that, because one of the things Google is doing is it's looking for plagiarism all the time. And if it finds you're matching somebody else's, it can easily see which one was done first. And if someone did theirs a year ago and you did yours today, they're going to know straight away that you've just copied theirs, and they'll punish you accordingly in the search results. So that's on-page SEO.